Hi, everybody. This is Erin Reese coming to you from my Substack, Truth and Consciousness. And today I'm very excited to have a guest to have a conversation with me. And I would like to introduce to you Jay Stewart Dixon, also known as Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
Hello. Howdy do.
I'm great. Jeff and I have known each other for, let's see, about how long? Since around 2012, I think.
Yeah, for 12 or 13 years.
Yeah. And we first met because you were doing interviews for a book or a course that you were working on at the time, Blue Collar Enlightenment. Is that right?
That sounds about right. I think you actually were following my blog, which was called Politically Incorrect Enlightenment,
Yes, I loved that. Let's bring that back. I loved that.
which was exactly how it sounds. It was just
Spiritual pie.
humorous.
Spiritual pie.
Hi. Yeah. And that's how I was first on the internet. And then 21 Days was my first book. That was in 2012 or something like that. Yeah, and then since then I've had the for a while I had a website um and a teaching that was called Blue Collar Enlightenment. Then I burned that to the ground, and then I waited for a few years and did after COVID. Really, Spirituality for Badasses was the next iteration of my work. And that led to a couple of books. And a whole bunch of stuff. So here we are.
Yes, here we are. Well, I remember actually first encountering you. I had come back from India
Hmm.
and I was living the rest of my life as I needed to do after that. And I turned on Buddha at the Gas Pump.
Oh yeah.
It's a great show for anyone who is interested in these topics. And you were interviewed by Rick there. And
Yeah.
I immediately fell in love with your vibe.
Hmm.
I said,
That's
"Oh my gosh, this is my spiritual brother."
that's yeah, and I think everyone watching this needs to know that Aaron and I we were separated at birth.
Yes, exactly.
We both we both have the same sense of humor. We both have we're both very liberal in our expression of our emotions, both positive and dark. We don't hold those back, and I really really appreciate that about Aaron. And I do the same. I've written books that are potty mouthed from beginning to the end, and humorous and sarcastic and irreverent, and on edge and politically incorrect. And I think that Aaron resonates with all of that no bullshit type of spirituality. Funny enough, though, again, for you guys watching, is that we've never met in person, and I can't wait to, it's
Mhm.
kind of, I can't wait till we can arrange that someday so I can pick on you in person.
Absolutely. I'll be giving it right back. No question. But that is actually one of the quotes that I wrote about your book. And I can't see if I can pull it up right here, but it was around for spirituality. Let's see, for spirituality and for badasses. I basically said he's your potty mouth big brother.
Yes.
Yes, I think you take great pride in that.
Yeah, I absolutely do. You know, one of the, it's become my trademark, as we talked about earlier. My
Hmm.
hallmark of my work is I don't like to dispense sugary, non-dual spirituality. That's just not my thing. Ironically, I came up through the schools of non-duality, just like you did. Although I did not go to India, most of the teachers that I studied with your teachers in India. So I came from Gangaji and Eli Jackson Bear and Arjuna Nick Arda and Andrew Cohen and Ken Wilber and geez, whoever else. But that whole basically what is now conventional Western Advaita Vedanta / non-duality. And so when I woke up, when I graduated from that school, the rock and roll part of me just wasn't in tune with the whole seriousness quality of those teachings. I just had a much more sloppy, out of the box rock and roll edge that I tried to make it work. I tried to stifle that, I think. Not stifle it, but I tried to contain it somehow, or to present myself as a good little neo Advaita Vedanta teacher. That lasted a week, And
Mhm.
yeah, so I think finally, really, I fully came out of the bad boy enlightenment club closet, or I came into it when I did Spirituality for Badasses. I was frustrated. I think I had a website that I was developing that was called, oh geez, I can't, Evolving Depression or something like that, which was very dry, very boring, and it just wasn't working. And I sat down to write, and I just started writing to myself, basically, as
Mhm.
if, what would I want to hear if I was a 20 something year old, and was telling it like it is in street language, um, and not holding back, and using curse words, and telling stories, and being funny. And that really resonated with a lot of people.
Yes.
So yeah, I just kind of kept. I have no intention of doing, deviating much from that. I'm willing to. I've now written 3 books in the Spirituality for Badasses series, and I've attempted to, and I'm not going to say they're fully fledged or uh, out of the oven yet, but several other books that still retain my um, iconoclastic points of view, but maybe not with so much, invectives and potty mouth terms. But yeah, to each his own.
Yes, to each his own. One of the reasons that we decided to meet today, we could talk forever about every topic, especially awakening, but
Yeah.
we decided that we were going to talk about politics without talking about politics per se.
Yeah. Because Aaron and I are both staunch Trump supporters. Um, and we really wanted to make sure that everybody is on board with this, who is, her followers and my followers. And but next week, contact us, and we'll be telling you that we're staunch Biden supporters. And then the week
Correct.
after that, it'll be Marianne Williamson.
And RFK
Um,
Jr.
RFK Jr. too. Yeah, all of them. We love them all. We love
Yes,
them
love
all
them all.
actually because they're all just aspects of ourselves. They're all characters in our dreams. They're all just these wonderful, fucking beautiful, awesome individuals who are all pushing our buttons right now, aren't they?
Oh, well, your sarcasm is totally well received, or non-sarcasm, because they truly are expressions of
Yeah,
the divine.
yeah. It's
Mm.
really hard to see that for a lot of people. When you get pummeled, and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I met many, there's good people on both sides of the aisle,
Mm.
as Mr. Trump
Mhm.
would say, and I'm from Charlottesville, so I know what the fuck I'm talking about when that quote is brought up. And damned if it isn't true. There's the heat, the resistance, the fear, the insecurity, the anxiety that we all feel, whether you're Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal, from this or that candidate.
Mhm.
Um, is just an invitation.
Mm. Mhm.
That's all. That's, Eckhart Tolle quote: "Things are meant to go wrong here.
Mm.
Things are meant to go wrong here." And so, politics is just, surface level band-aids for the things that go wrong here, but very much in our faces all day long.
Mhm.
And that's it's good. There's no, this is not a, this realm is a learning realm. and without tension, without friction, without some anxiety, then there'd be no waking, there'd be no desire or longing to wake up. So these things, when a politician is in your face all day long, you can't stand that person. It's more or less just an invitation to find what is truer than the surface personality, what is truer than your reaction, what is truer than your anxiety, what is beneath that, and
Mhm.
it's a way to wake up beyond the bullshit of polarization in politics. That's all this is.
Yes, and the book that you're working on right now is called Silver Lining: A Remedy for Our Collective National Anxiety, Healing Lessons We Can All Learn from American Politics. And one of the things that stood out to me when I looked at this sample of this book, you said your anxiety, stress, and worry is the invitation to fulfill the promise of the United States of America.
Yeah,
Powerful. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
sure. So the essential core of the Constitution of the United States is the First Amendment, freedom of speech.
Mhm.
And freedom of speech really is the freedom to think. Basically, you can think the way you want to think. You can think in groups. The press is allowed to think the way they want to. You can complain to the government about the way the government's thinking and acting. So it's this whole freedom to think.
Mhm.
And that's a big deal.
Mhm.
When you can be completely yourself, this freedom to think. And what happens, you see, when a society, and I do believe it's rare, I do believe it's rare when a society goes on for centuries, and it's now been 250 years for the United States, that we said, hey, let's form a country where we have the freedom to think. Um, if it goes on long enough, this freedom to think
Mhm.
eventually evolves into the freedom to go beyond thinking, which is
Hmm.
exactly what is happening right now. So the fulfillment of the true promise of the United States of America, the greater existential and philosophical promise, is the fulfillment of this ability to go beyond thinking, to discover the source of freedom itself, not just the freedom to think about policies um, and party and
It's to awaken entirely.
yes, but the freedom to think
To
about
be
what
free.
is freedom
That's
really
right.
existentially, what is it, and to not just to think about it, but to actually attain it, to
That's right.
actually attain it and to
And
be
when
it.
yes, this is where I get very excited. So in a way, what you're explaining here is that the crisis, quote unquote, that we're in now, which is just a repetition of all the other crises that we've experienced in our country and around the world and around and across the universe and the history of the planet, is
Yeah,
this opportunity that isn't has an inherent gift in it. The
yeah,
opportunity to awaken and to be ultimately free. Guess what? Ultimately free.
yeah,
Free from suffering.
yeah,
And that's where I get really excited. I also loved that you pointed out in your book sample that the Statue of Liberty, right?
mm.
Freedom, liberty, is actually entitled Liberty Enlightening Our World.
Yeah, and the forefathers, they weren't talking about flashlights.
Uh-huh. Right.
They were talking about they were talking about enlightenment. They were
Mm.
talking about that word, which they were not. That was not a word foreign to them. I mean, shit. You start with watching the movie with the National Treasure movie, where you ridiculously um, shows you the metaphysical content, of the metaphysical magical content of the early forefathers of the United States of America. But in truth, if you look at their writings and can read between the lines, there's a lot of esoteric, metaphysical, spiritual type of divine reverence that they had that all kind of pointed to this Statue of Liberty enlightening the world. They knew that a society where we have the ability to think freely is an enlightened society.
Mhm.
And that's no small thing. I, I I think the older I get and the more you see the machinations of this planet turn over and churn and work itself into a mighty fury, there's so many countries that aren't free that
Mhm.
it in that regard. I mean, you're not free to think how you want in China. You're not free to think how you want in Russia.
Mhm.
Um, and so democracies that go on for a long time ripen. And that's what's happening in the United States. And it's no small part, this has to do with the internet. The internet basically has given us all megaphones, and we're
Mhm.
all driving each other completely batty with all of our free thinking opinions. Because it's DEFCON 5 at 150 decibels every single day, where your phone is screaming at you
Mhm.
some opinion, some polarized opinion, and
Mhm.
it's causing you to be anxious. And you can take that on a surface level and be angry and go to political rallies and, oh, my guy is right and your guy is wrong, which is good for a third grader. But if you're a little wiser than that and a little older than that, you'll see it's an invitation. It's an invitation to really, really go beyond all of that.
That's right.
So,
Think for yourself. And one of the other parts that you quoted that I loved, which I have to say I never memorized, the Emancipation Proclamation. Did you
yeah.
have to memorize that when you were growing up? Was that so?
Oh, geez, I probably did.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
So
had to memorize it, but I certainly had to read it. Yeah.
because some children in the East Coast were actually, they would say that, I believe, instead of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, in the mornings. So, but just to briefly, in case any of you are interested here, this line from it from Abraham Lincoln that Jeff put in his book here, it says, "And by virtue of the power and for the purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states, no pun intended, right? States and parts of states are and henceforward shall be free, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons." Well, the most important part that I see in that is all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are and henceforward shall be free. Now, to me, the slaves in the South, that's a tiny fingernail of what that's talking about. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Those of us, of humanity, that are enslaved, that are in bondage, that are
Yeah.
suffering. And I don't mean just physically suffering or mentally suffering. I mean existentially suffering.
Yeah.
That's what the promise is. If we look at the Emancipation Proclamation, emancipate, free, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. Bob Marley, overplayed, but so important, that
Yeah.
song. It's powerful.
Yeah. I was surprised myself at the nuggets of wisdom that are in the founding um, paperwork of
Mhm.
this country.
Paperwork.
Yeah.
Can,
Um,
can I
there,
say, can I say more of what
yeah.
I read in your goodies here? Because this is so good. Okay, some of this is a little bit I wouldn't say obvious, but timely. I just did a podcast yesterday about uh basically duality in the form of masculine and feminine, yin and yang, and how do these parts work within harmony within ourselves, and doing that work and internally, because if it's not happening here, then how could we possibly expect to see it in the external and the healed culture? So
Yeah.
when I came across this part in your book about polarization, it made me think of that healing. So you wrote something about inward polarization in the individual psyche manifests itself in the form of judging, dividing, separating, controlling, etc. Basically being held bondage in duality. And both of us have a non-dual background and orientation, so we understand that that collapses, the polarities collapse. But what you're talking about here is how that facing that inward polarization and resolving that within ourselves will have an impact on the country and the world.
Yeah, of course. Like the 100th monkey, you know? It's like it takes 100 monkeys to figure out how to get the prize out of the coconut. And then once that 100th monkey has gotten the prize out of the coconut, the rest of the monkeys somehow just kind of inherently know how to do it. At least that's the theory at any rate. And I think that's the same with spiritual awakening work. That if we care to take this invitation and transform it into a life well lived in wisdom and in self growth, and by the invitation I mean, you know, what we've been talking about here, the polarization and the anxiety that's in our that's on our phones every day. If we do that, that's how you that's how um that's how we save ourselves,
Yeah,
or that's how we at least make the world. I'm never going to be the person that says, oh, that the world is going to be a, you know, a a wonderland. But we can make the world tolerable and make the world better, by individually waking up and going beyond the polarization of the way that the politics.
yes,
But to tackle all our problems from the left or the right or from those point of views, it'll just continue. It'll
that's
just,
right.
there's no, it's just an unending drama of bullshit that just keeps on going and going and going. And so that's what it takes is for individuals to go, there's got to be something more than this. Aren't we wiser than this? And that's really what the silver lining is about. It's about what my work is about. It's what Aaron's work is about. It's about going beyond thinking itself, going beyond and discovering the actual freedom
Mhm.
that's without limits.
Absolutely. Okay, so a million things, we'll have to meet more than once, I can tell, but a million things to say around that. So first of all, I love that you said the anxiety that lives in our phones. Okay, so if you have anxiety, check that out. It's all here, right? It doesn't have to be. You can just ignore it. I'm really big on awareness of propaganda in all forms.
Yeah.
Drop the concept. So in present time, mindful awareness, actualization, awakening, present time. It's only in present time. It's not out there. It's not tomorrow. It's not what happened yesterday. It's not even in front of the nose in your face. It's right here and now it's gone. So if one stays in present time, right here, right now, with only the single pointed awareness, the tip of the pen, maybe, and that's even gone. Where's the problem? Where's the
Exactly.
polarization?
And then what, see, what the argument would be, because I could hear it
Yeah, you hear
miles
the
and miles
question
away.
arising.
I
Mhm.
can hear the arguments from separate minds. Um,
Sure.
is well, I got to have my opinions. I'm going to have my mind is going to create these. I can't help it. I can't help it. I'm like, well, and who would I be without these opinions, and who would I be without my thoughts, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're pointing to isn't a killing off of your opinions or your thoughts or or anything. It's the killing off of your identity to them, and
Yeah.
your it's a killing off of your neurotic fucking clinging to them as if they're something that is really serving you and a value. It's totally fine. I distinguish this in the book is there's a difference between opinions and ideas, and it's perfectly fine to have ideas.
Actually, I perfectly enjoy my opinions, and yet that's coming from a place and a space of awakened healing of the split mind. So when there is the seeing through the split mind, I have a good time
Yeah,
with it.
you're not though married to your opinions. You're not like
They're not even real. They're not
yeah,
even true.
exactly. It's
It's
like,
not even true. Anything I say is not true.
yeah, you just
It's
see
only
that all
partial.
it's just bullshit, and you're okay with you're it's really weird. It's paradox. You're
Mhm.
okay. You know that your mind is going to create opinions and ideas and thoughts no matter what.
Yes.
So you can fight that, or you can just allow it and see it. And then what happens if when you allow it and you see it and you create a space between you and your opinions, a space between you and your ideas and thoughts, they don't hold the weight or the stress or the anxiety or the negative toxic effects that most opinions have that are on our phones, that are coming from other less wise individuals.
It's all radio. It's noise. It's
Yeah.
just a noise. You know what, Jeff? I just came to realize that we don't have as much time today as we had hoped because you and I spent so much time catching up before we began recording that now I'm actually on a deadline with my next appointment.
That's okay. Yeah,
Gives
we
us
can
the
do it.
opportunity to say, let's do part two.
Sure.
I just got a pop-up notice.
It's all right.
Totally got my uh, time out of time.
Yeah. It's all
Would you
good.
like to give us a little bit, just a couple teaser wrap-ups in terms of, what you're up to right now, how people can find you if they want to hear more about this?
Sure. So my published books are on Amazon, Spirituality for Badasses. And I really think that that's a great place to start if you want to have the um, not your usual dished out soupy saccharine spirituality, if that's of interest to you, and want a adventure story and a fun time. Check out my books. That's a great place to start. And yeah, leave it at that.
Well, it'd be fun to have you sometime as a guest at our satsang.
Oh,
As
I
a
would
speaker.
I would love to do that. Most of my satsang that I do, though, I do naked. And I
You
pretty much demand for my students when I'm doing naked satsang that everyone take mushrooms. So if that's okay with you, if you're okay with naked satsang with mushrooms, I'd be more than happy to be a guest speaker.
I'll be sure to put the Zoom on from our hot tub.
Sure, that works too.
Yeah. Well, this is just great to just give us a little taste here. I think even though it's not as long as you and I, we could talk all day and we will talk
Sure.
again, just to give a taste of what is this opportunity
Yeah.
happen, what is this opportunity right now in this so-called crisis?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's we're not out of the woods yet. So let's have another conversation about it. And maybe in that second part, we can point individuals to take up some practices to actually get their feet wet, to do the work, to get sloppy, because all this isn't going to be resolved by watching a video or reading one singular book. Um, there's real life burning up and experiences that are required if you want to see through all of the bullshit.
Thank you for that. I truly appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome. Did you still there?
I'm still here. No,
Oh.
nobody's home. I actually was just dropping in so deep. Wait, the mushrooms kicked in.
Deep Thoughts with Jack and Aaron Handy.
That's right. That's right. No, I just was so excited. Okay, thank you so much, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end the
Awesome.
recording right now,
Yep.
and we'll talk to you again. Okay.